Hi, folks. We're just giving this a few minutes or a minute to start as I see people coming into the waiting room. I guess while we're seeing people coming in, I will just do the boring part, which is introducing myself very quickly. I'm Christine Coe, Dr. Christine Coe on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I have the great delight of being the moderator for this incredible session. Okay, I see critical mass, so I'm going to just jump in because our time is very tight. A couple of quick bits of housekeeping before we get going. Feel free to chat with one another or share your props, emojis, whatever, in the chat to get you warmed up. Pop up in the chat where you're logging in from today. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A function, but let's just keep the chat for just other conversation. A couple notes about sharing. You're totally welcome, totally encouraged to share on social about this event, but no screen recording, please. And the hashtag for this event is hashtag Molly Ringwald Teen Years. Let me see if I can do this. There you go. So it's right there in the comments for you. We'd also be super grateful if you post on social to also tag CPTC at Parent and Teen. And if you end up posting about the event on your blog or whatever, we'd love to help elevate the piece. So please send a link to melissa@gebbencommunication.com, which is in there. Okay, moving on. I want to introduce my amazing guest today. So in some ways, Molly Ringwald needs no introduction to you. And I feel like she totally does, because in addition to being the teen culture icon we all know through her acting, she's something of a Renaissance woman. If you did not know, she's a best-selling author, a major media writer, a singer, a short film creator, and even, yes, a self-proclaimed rock geek. I'm into it. She is also a parent of 3 teens, including twins. Amazing. So welcome, Molly. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful. And then Dr. Ken Ginsburg, he is an adolescent medicine specialist, professor of pediatrics at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and founder and program director of the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. He is quite possibly the most impassioned person I have ever met when it comes to the topic of raising teens and believing in their strengths and their superpowers. He's also the author of 5 award-winning parenting books and Raise the Roof. He's got a new book coming out October 2022 called Congrats, You're Having a Teen, Strengthen Your Family and Raise a Good Person. Also, he has a pair of teens in their now in their 20s. So I didn't realize this was a teen party. I'm totally not a member of your circle, but all the applause for you both. So welcome, Dr. Ken, as well.
It's a joy to be here. Thank you.
All right, so fun to see where everybody's coming in from in the chat. We've got people all across the country, which is amazing. I'm gonna keep chatting. I'm gonna jump in right straight away with a question for you, Molly. So as I mentioned in the intro, you were a teen icon. You played a role in the way a generation saw teens, and in fact, you know, how teens saw themselves. You wrote an amazing essay. I loved it so much for the New Yorker. I'm going to pop it in the chat here for people who haven't read it yet. And you, in this piece, you talk about how you didn't really grasp that impact in the moment, but that looking back, you know, I'm curious about how you think these narratives about teens shaped how parents, you know, what they expected of their teens and even how teens behave.
Well, I feel like the films that I did with John Hughes, which sort of cemented me in the public consciousness, and also sort of froze me in time a bit as a teenager, I feel like those films had just an incredible impact because they really gave the voice to teenagers. They said what they have to say is important, and you need to listen. And in the subsequent years, you know, these films have been taught in classes. They open up the lines of communication. They're movies that teenagers can watch with their parents or another adult, and sort of opens the lines of communication in a really profound way. So I feel incredibly proud to be a part of these films. You know, at the same time, I I also have mixed feelings because they were made in a different time where, certain things were, different than they are now. I wouldn't say that they're the most politically correct at times. And I take issue with that. And I even took issue at the time when the films were made. But I think overall, I feel incredibly proud to be a part of them.
That's amazing. I have one follow-up question, and then I have a question for you, Ken. But so, the Breakfast Club, especially, which I actually just recently rewatched with my husband, and it portrays a set of teens who they're not, racially or in other ways different, but they are very different in terms of social identity. And we all know that real teens, like the cast in the movie, they don't fit neatly into boxes, even though I think there is a tendency to talk about teens and stereotypes. So this is kind of a big question, but I'm curious, as a parent now of teenagers, what do you want people to know about the inner lives of teens and their unique identities that are shaping over time?
Is that a question for me or Dr.
Yes,
Ken?
sorry, that was for you, but then I have a follow-up for Ken. So just to recap, it's the movie, we know teens don't fit into boxes, and we're seeing pretty well played out stereotypes playing out through the film. And so I guess my question to you is, what is your thinking about, from a parent perspective, what you want people to know about the inner lives of teens?
Well, I mean, that is one of the issues that I have looking back on the films now, what you pointed out in terms of there isn't a lot of diversity, racial diversity, and there's no LGBTQ characters, or at least openly LGBTQ characters. But that the films were made at a time, John Hughes was drawing on his very small, oops, somebody is calling me. Hopefully that won't keep happening. Anyway, I feel like what I would like is for the films to continue and have people make movies that are sort of use the Breakfast Club as a jumping off point, and make films that do have more racial diversity, but still embrace that theme, which is teen voices matter. And if you listen, teens will tell you what they're thinking and what they're feeling. It may be hard and they may be pushing you away, but if you listen, you will hear what you need to hear. And that's the most important thing for parents, for all parents, myself included, is to really listen to what your teens are telling you, and look for signs.
That's a perfect connection to my question for Dr. Ken. So I would love for you, from your expert opinion as an adolescent medicine specialist, to share a little bit about how, maybe a simple tactic or two for how to get parents to really look deeply at and embrace who their kids are, and how to make it clear that kids have permission to be their complete selves, even if we don't, as a parent, maybe don't understand it at moments.
Right. Thank you, Christina. I love that question. So let's back up for a minute. The question that all adolescents are going through is the largest question a human being has to answer. Who am I? And as you're trying to figure out who I am, the question is, am I normal? And do I fit in? And these are all the questions that swim around a teenager, and that I believe the Breakfast Club did such a good job of really diving into. And I'd love to talk about that in a minute. But let's talk now about parents' essential role in the question, who am I? As a human being is trying to figure out who they are, they take input from everywhere, from their peers, from the media. They try to figure out what it means to fit in. But when a parent knows who a child really is, in all of their complexity and all of their goodness, right? Their compassion, their integrity, their honesty, their sense of humor, how sometimes they're a pain in the butt, but you still love them. When a parent knows all that is good and right in a child, the parent becomes the North Star. The parent becomes the person that the child, as they are navigating the world, can look back at and say, the person who knows me the best, all that's good and right about me, and the ways in which I'm a pain in the butt, that person loves me. And that brings me to the most essential point imaginable. Why do we love? We love so that human beings know they're worthy of being loved. And that is a parent's role. When a parent is unconditionally accepting, loves fully, and knows your complexity, you launch into adulthood going, I'm worth loving. And when you have to navigate the complexities of adolescence because other people tell you you're not normal, not good enough in some way, deeply rooted in your sense of self, the person who knows me the most thinks I'm pretty good. That's our role.
So wonderful. It's like the seemingly simple things are actually, I mean, they actually are simple. Molly, I wanted to loop back to talk about, you've had this expansive acting career, and I want to talk a little bit about responsibility and this sort of push-pull, because what do you think your responsibility is as an entertainer, and how much leeway do you have when you're also responsible for executing on the vision of a writer or director? And I guess the follow-up to that is, I'm a little curious about what the difference has been for you in being a teen queen versus parenting a teen on the screen. I think those are very different things. Sorry, I packed so much in there, so many questions.
Well, I feel like in terms of my responsibility as an actor, my responsibility is really to do the best job that I can and to be as authentic as I can and to service the writer and the director's vision. But, filmmaking, theater, all of it, it's all incredibly collaborative. So I don't feel like I definitely don't have the last word. I offer as much input as I can, but it really is a collaborative art, and so much goes into making films, and it's remarkable to me that a film even gets made, considering how many elements have to come together to make it happen, and then that a film gets made and then is good is like it's a whole other level, and then that it actually passes multiple generations and continues to speak to people, that's something else. So I just try to do the best job that I can, which is also what I do as a parent. It's definitely a collaborative art as well. And in my case, I have my husband, who is also my IT guy. You got to meet earlier. He's my collaborator, and we work together to raise our kids. We both have strengths and weaknesses, and we complement each other. I don't know how I could do it without him. I mean, hats off to people who are single parents, because I think it's such a rewarding but very challenging job. And in terms of being a teen queen and being the parent of a teenager, you would think that it would give me some points and make me a little cooler. It doesn't at all. It means absolutely nothing to them. It means something to, I think, other teenagers. I get a lot of incredible feedback from teenagers that are not my own, but to them, I'm just their mom, and I'm just as like dorky and out of touch and whatever as every other mom that's out there. But it's kind of like it's a little bit of our shtick. I feel like it's so neurotypical and part of their development that they have to see me that way, and I'm okay with being seen that way because I'm their mom. I don't have to be their best friend. I love to connect with them, and I feel like I do connect with them, but ultimately I'm connecting with them as their mother, and they need to have other best friends, if you know what I mean. I mean, that's the way that I feel.
Absolutely. And I feel seen in the Dorky Parents Club, as does Michelle Garrett. So like high fives for that. Dr. Ken, I feel like there's actually a parallel push-pull. So I was talking about the, push-pull between, actors and directors with Molly, but when Molly referenced earlier that sort of natural pushing away that happens with adolescence, which we all kind of in our minds know is normal, but it also stresses us out, and we wonder, oh my gosh, is this normal? What's happening? I would love for you to just comment on that briefly about the best way to handle that, maybe, you know, when you're in, as a parent, when you're in that space of remembering, oh yeah, I used to push my parent away too, but also feeling completely freaked out when you're in conflict with your adolescent. What would you recommend to parents for how to navigate that a little more smoothly?
The parent should have a voice in their head, and the voice in their head should say, the reason that my child is pushing me away is because they love me so much it hurts. Now, let me explain the justification for that voice. So what happens is we raise our children and we take good care of them, and we raise them in these warm and fluffy nests, and we bring them all the juicy worms they need to eat. And when they're 6 or 8 years old, they open their mouths and they say, please take care of me. Then puberty happens, a normal piece of development. And when puberty happens, human beings understand, ultimately, I need to fly from this nest. And that is craziness. Why would you want to fly from a nest where your needs are taken care of? Why would you do that? So you have to begin imagining that nest, and you have to revisualize it, and you have to begin seeing it as actually quite prickly. And you have to look at the worms, or the birds bringing you the worms, and actually saying, I probably don't actually need them. I could probably get the worms on their own. And actually those worms are the birds are kind of embarrassing. And then, as you know, I'm embarrassed by the way they breathe even. And then later, as you're ready to leave the nest, you don't see the nest as prickly anymore. You see it as actually uninhabitable. And if you didn't, you would never fly. So this is a normal piece of development. And what I need every parent to know is this is not me being rejected. It's dependence that's being rejected. And I have done such a good job of loving my child that my child needs to push me away temporarily. Now, what's the key? Molly is 100% correct. If you're your child's best friend, you're not going to give them the independence that they need to learn that they can fly on their own. Our job during adolescence is to be guides. But when we honor our kids' growing independence, when we recognize them as the experts in their own life, that they have a voice, that they understand their world, that they can teach their reality to us, when we understand that during adolescence, we honor the stretching of their wings, we honor their growing independence, then when they fly, they'll come back to us for that interdependence we love and that really makes societies thrive. Molly, I've got good news for you. My girls are 26 and they're my best friends. And I never would have said that when they were 17 or 18 because I knew that that's not what they needed from me. Now, they come to me for guidance because I've honored their independence, but now we enjoy each other. And you know what else? They teach me a thing or two and occasionally have offered me guidance. So when they're older, that's healthy relationships, and that's your future.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm like ready for that. A question to you both. You both are, as I mentioned at the top of this episode broadcast, are parents of twins. I'm very curious, and I know this is like a big topic, but if you could just give one takeaway each, is how do you walk the line between giving your kids, these two different human beings that came out at roughly the same time, you know, the independence to make their own mistakes and, you know, helping your kids do life better by imparting your hard-won wisdom while also trying to respect just who they are as individuals?
Well, for me, there was just no question that my twins were individuals. I mean, I have fraternal twins. They're a boy and a girl, or I should say girl and a boy, because she is 3 minutes older, as she loves to lord over him. But they really are like yin and yang. They couldn't be more different. And so for me, it was just, you know, always honoring who they are. They always got along as kids, and I think it was because they really are so different and they complemented each other. Now that they're teenagers, they're 13 years old, and Now it's a little harder because they're both, you know, very much going through puberty, and they're a little bit more adversarial towards each other. But I think that they'll get through that phase. But, you know, for me, it was always like they were just womb mates, you know, and they're always going to have their own trajectories. And, you know, we never wanted to, I mean, they used to have birthday parties together, but we always said, when you're ready to do this on your own, just let us know. And actually this year was the first year that they chose to have separate birthday parties, which I think was kind of like a big milestone for them.
How about you, Ken? Your thoughts?
So my girls are identical. So I had to be very, very intentional about making sure that they each had their identity. And, you know, my favorite example is what, you know, they chose for their 3-year-old birthday cakes. They were allowed to pick any cake of their dreams. And one of them picked basically a princess cake with like a doll with a, you know, like big dress around her. And the other one wanted a blue armadillo that we had to have made, right? So they are intrinsically very deep, very different people. But the larger question that you're asking, Christine, is how do we support identity development in every human being, which is something you have to be very intentional about with twins. But the answer is the same, which is the identity they develop, not one we bestow upon them, not one that is to match another human being. And the way in which you form identity is through a process of experimentation and stretching and failures, and learning how to get back up and to grow from failures, and seeing these mistakes you make in life as opportunities for growth. And that's where parents are critical. When we freak out, when we see a failure, then kids learn, whoop, I've got to rein it in. I've got to be perfect for my parents. When instead we see just opportunities for growth everywhere, then kids will learn to succeed in areas they're destined to succeed, and to give up on the ways, in the places they're not destined to succeed. When we accept that human beings are uneven, identical twins are uneven from each other, and every human being is uneven themselves. And by getting out of the way, seeing them as experts in their own life, giving them opportunities to fail, grow, and recover, every human being learns their own points of excellence.
Beautiful. Oh, hello, little doggy. I love it. We're here for the pup cams. That's all good. This is making, you know, I'm thinking so much about identity based on this conversation today. And Molly, I was wondering if we could just loop back to stereotypes, because I'm also a little bit of like a chicken and egg / linguist nerd. So, you know, back when your films were coming out, the media was calling, you know, your squad the Brat Pack. And I think it kind of made, well, I don't know if teens and young adults already kind of had this stereotype, but, you know, the word brat became tied to, you know, the behavior of young adults. What did you think about that term then? I'm just sort of curious about then, and then how do you feel about it now?
I really didn't like it. You know, it was basically the invention of a New York Magazine writer who went out on the town with 3 actors that I'd done movies with. Actually, and one that I hadn't, Rob Lowe, Emilio, and Judd. And then this term was kind of born, and then everybody who did movies with them sort of came under this. I thought it was a very negative term, and I also thought that it was interesting. You know, we were all young actors, and we were doing well and doing good work, and it kind of seemed like a way to sort of bring us down in a way, you know, by calling us brats. And, you know, and of course it was a play on the Rat Pack, you know, that, you know, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and their crew in Las Vegas in the 50s, they kind of retooled that term to say brat, but it just felt very sort of negative and kind of stuck in a really unpleasant way. You know, suddenly people were seeing us as brats, and, you know, all we were actors who were young and, you know, doing movies together. You know, I wasn't hanging out in nightclubs. I mean, at that time, I couldn't even drink. I was 16 years old, you know, and so to have that term just kind of attached to me at that age, I found it a little bit unfair. Over the years, I've kind of become less annoyed about it. I mean, now weirdly, people see it as a positive term. Like they think the Brat Pack's so cool. They want to know if we still hang out, you know, like we all go out for like, we never did. I mean, except when we were working together. You know, I still text with Allie all the time. I mean, you know, we're still really good friends. And whenever I get to see somebody, we're always happy to see each other. But no, we were just people that did movies together, and somehow we got all connected through this this weird term.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that if I have my facts right, that you made The Breakfast Club when you were 15. And it came out when you were 17. So when I learned that like a few weeks ago, I was like mind blown.
I was 16 actually.
Oh, you were 16 when you made it.
Yeah,
still.
I was 15 when I made 16 Candles. I was 16 when I made The Breakfast Club, and 18 when I made Pretty in Pink.
Unreal. I don't think I was doing anything of importance at that time. Ken, I have a follow-up question for you. I was wondering if you could comment on, you know, since we're talking about naming and identity and stereotypes and all that stuff, what do you think, you know, does it matter like what we call teens and like how does that shape how we think about them? I know, you know, we talk a lot about reframing the narrative, and I would love for you to just quickly share a thought about how much those words matter.
Words matter.
I think, yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Words matter. They change the way society and people interact with other people. And most importantly, they change the way people see themselves. But the reason this matters on a global level is, remember, we talked about the main questions having to do with adolescence. Who am I? Am I normal? Do I fit in? Well, what's the main question that parents are asking? The parents are asking, do I still matter? I knew I mattered to my 8-year-old, to my 10-year-old. Now, when I was standing in the grocery store line, the woman behind me said I should get those hugs while I can because my child's about to become a monster. When you hear all of these stereotypes about teens, them being bratty, them being self-centered, them believing they're invincible, them being inherently risky, them being people you can't relate to, that they don't care what you think, all of these things that are not true. But when you believe or hear those things, then as a parent, you begin going, how do I engage with someone who's irrational? How do I engage with someone who's inherently risky? How do I engage with someone who doesn't care what I think? And as a result, you back off precisely when you should be drawing nearer. So words matter. And the reason we have to reframe this cultural narrative and we have to speak the truth about teens is so that parents and adults know how much they matter. And so teens rise to the expectations of who they are. They're super learners. They're natural experimenters. They are the most idealistic and visionary people on earth who are planning for our future as we choose to avert our eyes. Let's speak the truth to who they are, and they will rise and we will engage.
Perfect. Molly, did you have a thought you were going to interject there?
Actually, I was just going to say what Dr. Ken said, which is words matter. And it's something that I try to keep in mind when I speak to my kids, and also encourage them too, you know, just something as simple as, you know, when you hear someone say, you know, oh, I hate this or I hate that, you know, can you reframe that? Can you talk about what you're feeling instead of I hate, you know, like I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, you know, constantly trying to give those tools and remind your kids that words matter, and can also change the way that you feel about something. You know, I feel like when I use a lot of negative language, I start to feel really grouchy. You know, I start to feel really angry. So to try to keep it positive, and to really try to remember what it is that you're really feeling and how to express it, rather than using these blanket, you know, negative terms.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. So we are fast running out of time here. So I wanted to ask you both one lightning fast. I'm an actionable person, so I always want to leave people with something they feel agency to do. So in the context of thinking about how complicated teen life is now for so many reasons, we didn't even touch on technology. That was intentional on my part. In each of your opinions, I would just love a quick response on what would be your advice to a parent of a teen on one of the very best things you can do to support your teen right now?
Very best thing that a parent can do?
Yeah, just to be a supportive force in their teen's life.
Well, I'm just going to go back to something that I said earlier, which is to listen to what they're telling you, to go towards them when everything in your mind is telling you to run away. Because I think as parents, we're human beings. I certainly get frustrated. I can see red and just sort of shut down when I get angry. So it's something that I tell myself a lot, just to, take a deep breath and not run away and really sort of go towards them. Also for me, I don't know if this works for everyone, but to me, just putting a hand on my child really has a huge difference. And it, not getting into their space and grabbing them, although that might work for some parents, but for me, it's always really, just to kind of diffuse things a little bit, to put my hand there, just to say like, okay, we're here. We're like, let's take a minute. So I think those are my little nuggets of wisdom.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Ken, thoughts?
I loved that, and I agree entirely with everything that Molly said. If I had to choose a word, it would be stay present. And staying present means seeing the young person as they deserve to be seen, not based on the behavior they might be displaying. And stay calm. Being calm doesn't mean you ignore the problem. It means that you are strategically trying to figure out how to be most supportive during the problem. When an adolescent whose adolescents are emotionally brilliant and the emotional parts of their brain are ready to fire at any moment, when we get condescending and angry, we stimulate that emotional part of their brain and they can't think. But when we do the work we need to do to stay calm, we stay present, we put that hand on them and say, I'm really here. We calm the emotional part of their brain. It feels safe. And then suddenly you have a child who can think as rationally, as thoughtfully as an adult.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, that's a good reminder to tell people that the Center for Parent and Teen Communication has like a wild amount of resources on like brain development, adolescents, handling, flare-ups, all this stuff. So definitely go check it out because there's so much great stuff there. So Molly Ringwald, Dr. Ken Ginsburg, this was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm so grateful to you both for being here. So thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Absolute joy and honor.
Yeah, and to everybody else, we of course would love to see where you're posting. Please be sure to use the hashtag Molly Ringwald Teen Years and also tag Parent and Teen so we can see and amplify everything. And to everybody who joined us today, thank you for taking the time out to spend time with us. It was a beautiful conversation. And I'll just close by saying, dorky parents unite. Bye, everybody. Take care.